Hi everyone, my name is Temilade Salami from Nigeria, and today I want to tell you a story of a girl called Ayo. Ayo was a happy girl with dreams just like everyone seated here. She wanted to change the world and grow up to be powerful just like us. Our home was just few steps away from a beautiful beach in our community. And when I say home, I do not speak of the ones with glass windows and high-rise buildings. When I say home, I speak of roofs with brown colors put together just to have a place to lay. Her parents were farmers. And finally, Ayo graduated from a primary school. And of course, with loud cheers behind her as the best student, I will become great, she said to her friend. Only if Ayo knew that day was the genesis of a crisis, she wouldn't live to tell the story. Only if she knew that the sun wouldn't take long to set, the fainting cries of what seemed like her mother's voice was loud enough for her. And as she made her way to the farm to share the exciting news, her father has just been killed, and after he refused to vacate the oil-rich land lying beneath his crops, and her mother, her voice gone from the screams for help. And what seemed like an exciting day turned sour for the whole community. And as if that wasn't enough, the climate crisis hit. The beach that served as a playground for Ayo and her community, the shores that housed many happy families, became a thing of the past. Her house was swallowed by the sea level rise. Her books drenched, and she could barely pick the pieces. In a moment, all her dreams were welled up in the uncertainties of the climate crisis, the one induced with greed and sheer inaction. As if the gas flaring that had painted the blue skies black wasn't enough, all she had left were rumbles from her home and her dear mother. She passed away. Losing her husband and all she had was too much to bear, I guess. Some weeks later, Ayo died of hunger. Today, there are millions of Ayo out there suffering from the menace of climate change. Today, there are millions of Ayo's mother dying from the injustice of greed and profit. Today, there are men who has loved their lives, and they are scattered all over the world seeking justice. Today, we choose to challenge our leaders to act on all the promises. And this is where we say, dear world leaders, we see you. We see how you keep making 10 years plan as if we have that much time to wait. We see the promises and the pledges. How about now? Can the flood in Gambia wait that long? Or the 41 million people at the brink of famine hold their empty stomachs till 2030? Can the oil-filled contaminated river in Niger Delta wait till then? Or will the black suits in Port Harcourt continue to replace the air for 10 years? Can the Amazon rainforest really wait? We have carried these burdens for too long, and the best time for you to act was yesterday. COP21 made the promise, but COP26 has to deliver. And for the vulnerable and affected countries, I would like to say, we are not projects to tick or charity works to fill the good books. Whatever you do will still not fully solve the already done damages and lives lost. And as far as I can remember, the climate crisis is not an issue to be postponed. It is a now issue, and we must treat it as one. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Temi, for inspiring us. I think what we all need today is also inspiration and connections between diverse voices. And that's what exactly we wanted to do with this panel. Not only have women or youth or indigenous people separate, but actually together to connect and to inspire and actually act. No? So today we have that diverse panel that is going to try to put social justice at the center of global climate action. We all believe that we need to go beyond saying all the time that climate change is real, that climate change is caused by humans, but to talk about which humans, which systems, and what we can do together to act now. So today I'm going to briefly introduce the panel, and then the panel and the voices are all yours. First, we will have Ian Ngunga from Decarbonized and TakingITGlobal. Afterwards, we have Thelma Tuarepang, coordinator of the Indigenous Women of the Brazilian Amazon. Then Sheila Oparaocha from the Energia Network. Nadia Najar from Push Sweden, and finally Chandel O'Neill from Unite for Climate Action. So the idea here is to first hear and listen to their stories, to their voices, then see how we can all connect, so the us, me, us, and then the now, close with the call to action and also a performance by Thelma. So Ian, I would like to start with you. Have you shared with us all your main challenges, what you live on the ground, and also what you do that we can all learn from?
Thank you so much. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Ian Mzagunga, and I'm 15 years old, representing the African continental student for TakingITGlobal, the Decarbonized project. So what is Decarbonized? Decarbonized is an under 18 youth initiative that raises the voice of the youth, as I said, who are under 18. The process through which we do so is quite incredible, actually. Every year, the coordinators of our project unite thousands of students from hundreds of schools to take part in the project, which takes place in an online classroom. In the virtual classroom, we have activities that engage your mind on an individual level and bilateral activities that engage you with other countries to widen your perspective, then continental activities, which widen the perspective even more, and then to the global activity, which unites all of the minds together. In the global activity, the students take place in writing the project for the year, and this year, with over 35,000 students from over 54 countries, we created the Decarbonized Global Youth Manifesto. The Decarbonized Global Youth Manifesto contains the ideas of all these students on matters regarding climate. And with it, we hope that leaders will be able to hear the voices of the youth who are under 18 from all these diverse places and take our ideas into consideration. And this is what Decarbonized does. And I find this quite useful, especially when we come to talking about marginalization. The youth, as defined by the UN, are people between 18 to 35, and they are quite marginalized from the main decisions and discussions that take place in processes such as policymaking. But although they are marginalized, they're given representation, such as by the UN body UNGO, which is a direct link between the youth and the UN. However, us under 18 youth are not represented, and we are just as marginalized, or even more so worsely marginalized, than the people who are 18 to 35. And this is quite shocking, actually, when 29% of the world's population are under 18, and over 50% of Africa's population is under 18. If 50% of a delegation of a country was missing, I'm pretty sure it would have been a concern, and we feel it needs to be a concern for us as well. Furthermore, my background, being from the global south, I'm Kenyan, has meant that I do not receive as many platforms that I need to air my voice for people to listen to me, as I feel like a person in the global north, such as Canada, would receive. The marginalization of our communities builds ignorance and makes us unaware of the struggles of others, and makes it harder to create solutions with them, for them, when most of these people can't do it for themselves. However, Decarbonized ends this. I am Black, I am African, I am under 18, I have a voice, and Decarbonized gives me the platform. It gave me the opportunity to share my ideas, for my voice to be heard regardless of my background, my age, and my ethnicity. My voice can be heard, and this is why I do what I do, which is try my best to promote the voice of the people who are not given the platform to raise theirs. So if I were asked, why do I like Decarbonized? Why am I passionate about Decarbonized? It is because it is one of the few organizations that has given me the representation and a chance to speak out, especially being under 18. It has also developed an interest in me in activism, and I'm thinking of that as a second career path. Lessons that I've learned from Decarbonized and this whole experience is that acquiring representation requires sacrifice and commitment. It requires that you step beyond your comfort zone and take a stand. It can be acquiring policy from leaders in grand gestures such as a protest, or fighting your way to present somewhere like I am today. A wise man by the name of Amfonsen once told me, if you were in a room with 6 white people and him himself being Black, and felt uncomfy and decided he wanted to leave, the second he left that room, there would be no Black people in that room. They have no representation there. But if he stayed and went there feeling uncomfy, another Black person would come by and see him there, the only Black person in that room representing them. The under 18 youth are the youth and the voice of the future. I am here as part of Decarbonized, representing the youth, representing the voice of the future. Thank you.
Thank you, Ian. I think you said it all in terms of also having the chance to have your voice here heard, and hopefully a lot of people are also listening to us online as well. Telma, I was going to speak in Spanish. Can you take us to your reality in the Amazon? And also, we were talking at lunch, how is it to be a female leader, also in an indigenous community, and taking your voice up here?
Boa tarde a todos, a todas. Sou Thelma, do povo Tauripã, do estado de Roraima. Sou coordenadora geral da União das Mulheres Indígenas da Amazônia Brasileira. Uma líder indígena, mulher, que nasceu num berço de luta, vendo os meus avós, os meus tios, levantar cerca e o fazendeiro, com os seus pistoleiros, derrubarem a cerca do nosso território. E isso me levou a ser uma liderança. Eu fui a primeira cacica na minha aldeia. Eu sou professora de formação do ensino infantil, porque eu acredito que é através do reflorestamento de uma criança, de um jovem, que nós teremos um futuro melhor. Como temos exemplos aqui, né, desses jovens. E a mulher indígena, ela passa hoje por um processo de visibilidade. A luta, assim como as mulheres brancas e as mulheres negras. A nossa luta das mulheres indígenas não é diferente da luta da mulher branca, da mulher negra. E nós, mulheres indígenas, estamos hoje, conseguimos chegar dentro da universidade, dentro do espaço do Congresso, na política no Brasil. Conseguimos eleger a primeira mulher indígena do povo Apixana, que é do meu estado. E nós fazemos esse papel, eu faço esse papel dentro do meu território, fora do meu território, e levando a voz das mulheres indígenas. Dando visibilidade à luta, à existência. Porque nós, mulheres, nós cuidamos não só da nossa casa, mas nós cuidamos dos nossos territórios. Nós também cuidamos da vida de cada um de vocês. Porque é através da nossa conexão com a nossa espiritualidade, com a nossa ancestralidade, que nós ainda conseguimos assegurar a vida. Vocês falam planeta Terra, nós falamos a nossa Mãe Terra. A Mãe Terra que dá o alimento, que dá a água. E nós, mulheres, nós temos um papel fundamental. Cuidar, proteger. E eu venho nessa luta. Como coordenadora da Amazônia, com mulheres nos 9 estados, nós fazemos o papel de proteção. Cuidamos dos nossos territórios, reflorestando por onde o fogo passou e matou a plantação. Nós cuidamos também da medicina tradicional. Essa medicina tradicional, ela curou muitas vidas devido à Covid. A nossa conexão com a nossa espiritualidade, com os nossos ancestrais, para que essas vidas, são vidas humanas. E o presidente do Brasil, como outros presidentes, eles não têm cuidado. Como nós, mulheres indígenas, como nós, mulheres, cuidamos. É preciso, nesse momento, a nossa união para que o planeta de vocês não se acabe, porque esse planeta é a nossa Mãe Terra e nós precisamos cuidar dela. Nós precisamos orientar a juventude que ela não é um futuro, ela é o presente. E que ela precisa assegurar o futuro das suas próximas gerações. Esse é o papel, esse é o meu papel dentro do meu território. Quando eu levo a voz das mulheres indígenas para o mundo, porque precisamos cuidar. A nossa organização, que se chama UMIAB, ela trabalha nos 9 estados, com várias mulheres de várias etnias, desenvolvendo a sustentabilidade, o trabalho com os artesanatos, e a mulher, ao colher as sementes para o seu artesanato, ela sabe que houve uma mudança no clima. Porque quando ela vai para a mata, quando ela vai para a floresta, buscar sua semente, o fogo acabou destruindo. Hoje, a mulher também, ela cuida da sustentabilidade dentro do seu território. Mas hoje nós precisamos de projeto dentro dos nossos territórios, porque a mineração, a hidrelétrica, ela acabou com o nosso alimento. Ela está acabando com o nosso alimento. Então, nós precisamos. O Brasil, ele precisa de vocês. Ele precisa da interferência dos países, dos grandes bancos que jogam o dinheiro dentro do Brasil para destruir as nossas vidas. Com a mineração, com as hidrelétricas, com a soja. E o nosso papel como mulher indígena é fazer com que a nossa voz ela ecoe ao mundo. Porque nós precisamos do socorro. O planeta Terra ele está pedindo socorro. Qual é o seu papel dentro da sua casa? O que vocês estão fazendo para que vocês nos ajudem a manter a nossa Mãe Terra viva? Eu estou cuidando do meu território, reflorestando, quando o fogo vem, tem acabado com as nossas plantações, tem aquecido a terra, tem matado muitos animais. Então, nós precisamos do apoio de cada um, para que o Brasil, ele seja, de fato, um Brasil sustentável. Não para destruição, não para acabar com as nossas vidas. Então, eu tenho um papel que eu faço dentro do meu território, eu faço fora do meu território, é reflorestamentos para a cura da terra. E essa cura, ela precisa ser assegurada por cada um de vocês. O cuidar, o nosso papel é o cuidar. Nós, mulheres indígenas, cuidamos de casa, cuidamos dos nossos meio ambientes, da nossa biodiversidade, mas nós travamos hoje uma fúria muito grande do próprio planeta Terra se revoltando. Quando acontece as enchentes, muita chuva, o aquecimento, e isso tudo interfere na nossa vida. Mas tudo isso é a ação do homem. E nós, povos indígenas, mulheres indígenas, nós estamos nessa luta, levando o jovem para dentro das universidades, para que ele conheça, para que ele possa contribuir, unir o conhecimento tradicional com a tecnologia, para a gente salvar o mundo. E eu, como coordenadora, como mulher indígena, nós estamos nessa batalha para que o governo brasileiro nos vejam como seres humanos. Nós não somos animais. Nós não queremos ser exterminados como os dinossauros foram exterminados. Por isso, nós estamos aqui, viemos até a COP para falar ao mundo que vidas indígenas importam, que vidas humanas importam. E nós precisamos assegurar a vida da nossa Mãe Terra.
Obrigada,
É isso,
Thelma.
obrigada.
Obrigada, Thelma. How can this relate to you, Sheila? How can this relate to you and the whole years and history of your fight for gender, just climate and energy transition?
Thank you very much, Carolina. It's going to be a very difficult act to follow with my previous speakers, but let me first start by saying thank you for inviting me to be on such a distinguished panel. The question that you asked us, what are the challenges that we see from in the communities and regions that we work with, and what are the initiatives that we are solutions that we're proposing to resolve these challenges. It's a difficult one because there are many challenges where we come from and many regions. But indeed, I'll speak to one that you spoke to, which is one that my organization, the Energy International Network on Gender Sustainable Energy, that's hosted by Hivos Foundation in the Netherlands, is working on. And that is a rights failure where we find that more than 1 billion people lack access to electricity, to power their businesses, to power their homes, to power their social services. And we're still 2.6 billion people lack access to what we call clean cooking fuels. So that means every day we have particularly women and women with children on their backs cooking over open fires and inhaling toxic fumes. And this causes close to 4 billion premature deaths. I want to emphasize premature because in the end, of course, we all expire, but these are premature deaths annually every year. Over the last 2 years, WHO has said there are 4 million people that have unfortunately died due to COVID. And now we're talking about 4 million people dying every year because of not being able to cook with clean fuels. Other experiences of this lack of energy access are also what we call time poverty. We have women spending close to 68 hours every day on domestic tasks, collecting fuel wood, collecting water, processing their food because they lack access to energy. And this has a direct impact on how much time they have to engage in other productive activities to earn an income, to have an education. And just to link to the earlier speaker from my young brother from Kenya, it is also, we also find that the lack of energy access and the impacts are also intergenerational. So if a mother cannot collect fuel wood, the first person she calls on, unfortunately, is her girl child, who she takes away from school to help her to provide energy services for the family. But we only don't, it's not just in the communities that we have impacts. We also find in the energy sector we're not doing too well when it comes to the equal representation of women in our organizations, particularly in decision making. It depends on which part of the energy sector you have, but the best case scenario is in our renewable energy sector, and there are only 1/3 of jobs, particularly in leadership positions, are occupied by women. So these are some of the challenges that we have globally. What are we trying to do? What Energia is trying to do, first and foremost, is to change the perception of how gender issues and how women are viewed within the sector. To say that, yes, we are victims of the lack of energy access, but more importantly, we are agents of change, that women know their solutions and can lead and drive these solutions. So, for example, we have a program which we call our Women Economic Empowerment Program, where we work with 6,000 women to deliver energy services in their own communities, to start businesses, to operate these businesses and to grow these businesses. How we support the women that we work with, and these are mostly women living in poor communities in rural areas in Asia and Africa, is we do this by, first of all, providing them with business development services and support, so building their capacity to understand what it is to run a good business. The second one is trying to address the challenges that every woman finds to gain capital. In fact, WRI reports showed that the most disadvantaged person trying to get any form of funding or credit from any bank, whether it's a microfinance bank or whether it is a savings and credits group, is particularly a poor woman living in Africa. So trying to interface between between financial institutions, local financial institutions, to be able to give funding to women entrepreneurs is another thing that we work on. We also work on building their skills and also in what I think is most unique in our program is working with women through what we call sisterhood groups. And these are building on a phenomenon that's quite popular in working with women, particularly coming from the microcredit sector, is working with village savings and credits groups. What we have tried to do is to build on these groups, take them further than being savings and credits groups, to being groups where we can teach women to be able to negotiate, to be able to understand what it means to bargain with market actors, to be able to negotiate and to bargain and get a better deal from their financiers. Also to train them to have a space and a voice within forums like this, but mostly at country levels, where they can present their own issues and discuss and challenge policymakers to really, and people within business and markets to understand their issues and to present their own challenges. So that's a little bit about what we are doing, some of the challenges and some of the solutions that we're trying to build on. Thank you.
Thank you, Sheila, Thank you, Sheila, for sharing that with us. I forgot to introduce myself. I am Carolina Zambrano from the Hivos Foundation, and we were putting this event together with TakingITGlobal, Push Sweden, and also Unite for Climate Action and CEPLAES. And we were thinking that at the beginning we were only going to have voices from the Global South. And then we realized that if we want to act together and involve everyone, we also need the voices from the Global North. Because with that divide, we don't get to do what is needed in a way. So that's why we also have Nadia here to share her perspective as well and the challenges and innovative ideas.
Yeah, thank you. I'm really honored to speak on this panel today. My name is Nadia. I'm part of Push Sweden. We are a Swedish youth organization working on a national level to push for higher climate ambition, but especially also in these international fora, so on climate conferences, also on EU level. And yeah, so we really try to bring a youth perspective into the negotiations, but also to translate and to explain to Swedish youth back home what the conferences are about and to make it understandable. Yes, and so as Carolina also said, I think we as a Global North organization, we have really a responsibility to promote right-based climate justice and like also yeah, push forward and question our own roles in the climate movement. And so I think as an organization we are definitely not doing enough, and I think that's why I feel like I'm on the panel here to learn. And yeah, so we are of course trying to bring Centro voices from most affected peoples and areas when we are here at COP, so how we are reporting, and also bring youth from the Global South into spaces where we might have the privilege to go because we have contact to the Swedish delegation or the Swedish ministers. But as I said, it's definitely not enough, and we really need to go a step further and really need to reflect on how can we move from kind of passing the mic to really questioning why do some have the mic in the first place and others not. And yes, but also reflecting on how climate change impacts Swedish youth and European youth. I mean, I think there's also, I mean, the climate crisis has also arrived in Europe, but of course not in the scale and not in that magnitude as in the Global South. But some examples, I mean, we have already seen forest fires, floods. I was recently at a demonstration in Brussels, and there were school kids really screaming for justice for their school friend who had drowned in the Brussels, like in a Belgian summer floods. So it is not, the climate crisis has also reached the Global North, but of course not in that magnitude, and there's a higher capacity to adapt. So what I see is that we really need to take our privilege as Global North organization, and that's why also I'm so happy to have this discussion of how can we push that forward and move and work together to really center all diverse voices. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you, Nadia. How do you see this all, Chandel? I know when we were talking about this, you wanted to bring also in the intersectionality perspective, and also you are from Trinidad and Tobago, from the Caribbean, so another part of the world. So what?
My name is Shanda O'Neill. I'm a sustainable energy specialist and a human rights advocate from Trinidad and Tobago. I'm also Black and queer, if that's not obvious. I'm okay with you knowing that, it's not a secret. I will say, okay, I'm part of this project called Unite for Climate Action, and basically we're a bunch of youth who met last year through Building Bridges for Climate Action, and we met a bunch of different German NGOs, think tanks, government ministries, and all these kind of things, just lobbying for our cause, and through that we decided to continue to working together. And this year, the big project was getting to COP, because it's easy to see in COP and these kind of spaces, like people coming from where we come from, like it's Latin America and Caribbean youth, and we worked with some European youth, like we're not we don't get here. Like, we don't get here. Like, straight up, my government couldn't tell me how to get here. So part of it was like us setting up a system where we found a way around the system. Like, for us, it would be, you have to go to your government ministry and all this kind of things, and they wouldn't necessarily have NGOs or like accredited organizations in the region that can get you badges, but it's through like just sharing resources and learning about the system, we figured out we could get people badges and get people here beyond like depending on our government that just straight up won't return your emails, doesn't take you on, like not really transparent in how they use the mechanisms that they're supposed to be, used and being accountable to citizens. So it's kind of like getting here is kind of like poking fun at my government a little bit, like, hey, I got here without you. And I have done that to the head of my delegation, and he knows I'm doing it too. And when I get back home, I still have that joke, and I think it's really funny I can do that. So part of it is having fun with going around the system and dealing with bureaucracy and finding ways around it and just showing other people there is a way, there is a path. It's hard, it's difficult, but you gotta try, you gotta have some good allies, gotta make some good friends, and you could do some things that seemingly impossible, like get into COP26, I think, yeah.
You talked a little bit about how you worked also with other Latin American youth to get here. What have you learned from that? Like, how can we connect with each other, being in rural areas, in Africa, in the Amazon, being in urban areas, in the global north? What can we do to connect more with each other in the midst of the pandemic and also inspire other people to join the global movement and change?
I think it's part of like the whole power dynamics, like decolonize and decolonize. I think the colonizer likes to convince the decolonized people that they're a lot different and try to keep them separate, but it's us remembering like we're just humans on this planet. We're all trying the same fight, but it's the influence of the media and other things that'll tell us that we're different based on like BIPOC, marginalized, gender identity and all these kind of things. But in the end of the day, we all want the same things, like a safe place to live, a good family, a good life, good clean access to food and water, and like just take out all the noise and all the media and all the things that are telling us differently, and remembering like we're trying to fight a bigger fight, and we could either do this together or we could die alone, and I think we have to remember that.
What would you think about that, Thelma? Living in a rural place in the Amazon and being very far away, how can we connect with each other? Not only saying like, I take care of the planet, please join, like how can we do that in the world? Also considering the digital gap that we have, because not everyone is connected or has access to internet, etc. Have you applied any specific initiatives or strategies to do that?
Eu vejo que a única estratégia que nós temos que ter é cuidar do nosso planeta Terra. É cada um fazer o seu papel. Porque a minha luta é a luta de todos. Precisamos, de fato, falar ao mundo que as nossas vidas, elas importam. Porque o capitalismo, ele só vem para destruir, como ele está destruindo. A mineração, o garimpo, a soja, ela só tem destruído. Então, nós precisamos, de fato, darmos as mãos uns aos outros para que a gente consiga assegurar a vida das próximas gerações. O reflorestamento não é só o reflorestar a terra, mas é a mente humana. Qual é o seu papel dentro do planeta Terra? É isso.
Ian, from your experience, like, how can you do that and connect with other generations, and also how do you work also with younger generations than you, like children and girls and?
Okay, especially with the rise of the digital age, I feel like we are more connected than ever, but there's still voices that need to be raised. a common misconception is that people don't have a voice, but everybody has a voice. It's just a platform that's required. So I feel to connect people together, okay, beginning with minorities, community-based discussions would be a great way of doing so, because it's by community discussion, actually, that I'm here today. And as for the generational gap, I think it's just understanding each other and giving us space to communicate. COP26, like where I am right now, it's a great opportunity for me to share my ideas with people of all generations here, like such as in the audience. And I feel like being given the opportunity to do more events like this for people who have something to say is a great way of raising the voices of these people and sharing ideas.
Yeah, and I'm part of Parents for Future, for example, and I have seen, I'm very excited about all the movement of mothers and parents that have been here too. So because it's always connected to love in a way and the relationships we have with each other. Sheila, you talked a lot about different initiatives from Energia Network. Do you feel that you have been successful in a way in redistributing power? And how do we measure that in a way?
I think that we have, at least in the communities and with the women entrepreneurs that we have, I think we have been successful in redistributing economic power because we, when we go in, we make sure that, well, first of all, we work with individual women entrepreneurs. But before we start working with individual women entrepreneurs, we try to break down the resistance that comes from their family, and particularly from husbands and other male relatives in the family, to actually engage in the project, to bring in an entrepreneurial project. So we start our conversation by explaining why it's important, what is going to be the benefits of engaging in this program with a women entrepreneur. And one thing that we have learned is that when you start talking about money, I think men in families do tend to understand that. And particularly when you start linking that to benefits like, providing for children to go to school, etc. So that's one. Already starting to change the power dynamics within the family. And then when we engage with the women entrepreneurs, it's not come and go. We've been doing this now for the past. We started in 2012, and we've been working with our women entrepreneurs since then. And we have a growth cycle. We do want women businesses to grow, and now with COVID, make sure that they're resilient, so that they become a pivot within their communities that is driving their local economies. So we make sure that our women businesses have at least between 10 to 20% growth annually, which is quite substantive if you look at, if you consider that most informal businesses for women, I think there's something like 2/3 of them don't survive. So that's something that we do. We also connect to local leaders in the community to make sure that they are also supportive of their businesses. They understand and they're supportive of their businesses. And like I said, a big part of us is training our women how to negotiate and to position themselves within their communities. One of our secrets, which we don't say very often to our donors, is that we try to make sure that all our women within their families and within their communities are at least earning 10% more than either their husbands, or 10% more than the same type of businesses that are being run there. Because we feel it's when you strengthen their financial position, then they're in a position to negotiate and to speak. So I do think that we're making a difference in the power structures within, and we actually also measure decision making as well. That's another thing I want to say. Are women actually making decisions in their investment in their business, but how are these translating into their homes? That's something that we do on a regular basis. So I think in that way we are changing power dynamics.
Thank you. It was very clear, Sheila. And Nadia, can you share a little bit on specific experiences your organization has in terms of North-South cooperation around the youth movement?
Yeah, definitely. So, I mean, I think just also preparing for COP, it's been crucial to invite MAPA youth leaders to, I mean, we had Chandal in one of our training sessions, and like really understand, so also what are the different barriers MAPA youth face, for example, coming to COP, and even having more barriers of like financial, vaccine, visa barriers, and kind of really thinking about that every time we talk to any policymaker or we talk to any delegation. And I think like these connections and these these online meetings or now personal meetings are really most valuable. And but I think at the same time we really need to go beyond that and really need to see. I mean that we're not kind of perpetuating kind of colonial structures, or not only thinking about kind of gatekeeping but really seeing how can we see, or how can we question why certain have more privilege in the space and others not, and how can we change that? And I think I don't have the answer there yet, and happy to hear from the others also.
Yeah, I would like to now open the floor for questions. If any of you have a question, you can come to any of the mics, and please say who you address your question to.
Don't all rush at once.
Sure. Okay. Then we can continue a little bit, and I would like to make it more of a conversation. I don't know if you have questions for each other as well. One thing that I'm always thinking about is that normally everything requires trust, and building trust between different organizations that are made of different people as well, and that takes time. So in a way, it's hard to take the time to build the trust in the midst of the urgency of all the problems that we are facing. I don't know how you see that, like the trust building and the organizational processes that are required to build transformational partnerships. And by transformational partnerships, I mean not something where 1 + 1 = 2, but actually where we come together and get new ideas and new ways of working besides just putting resources together, right? So do you have any ideas or positions on that?
I'll jump in. The first thing you have to do is give it time. Like if you're building trust, you got to give it time and get to know people as real people. And I think as you get older, you get better at reading people, so you know who you can and you can't trust, and that has its certain benefits. But just learn to trust your instincts more about the people you interact with. And there's the power of social media. You could do some serious creeping on people's social media. You could get intel and all that kind of stuff if you want to. So build trust, and fingers crossed it works out well.
And I think it's not just trust between people, it's also trust between organizations. And unfortunately, we work on projects. You've got 3 years to finish the project. You've got to meet this deadline, that deadline, etc. And indeed, it doesn't give you sufficient space and time to sit down and get to know each other and identify what are the differences, but also what the commonalities that are bringing you together. Because it's always, we have to deliver this and this and that. So I think in some programs we have done that. One of the programs that I'm very proud of is a previous program which has ended, but I think we're taking the lessons going forward, and that is what we call the Green and Inclusive Energy Partnership that we had. And in fact, one of my colleagues, Echo, who run the program, is here. And when Echo and I first started working together, I was very anxious about the methods that he was using because I thought, okay, when are we going to get things done? You're supposed to go things. But he really wanted us to take time to bring everyone together, to to use different, different types of methods, take us out of our comfort zones, to really listen to each other, to listen to each other, to understand what our problems are. For instance, there's also something that we call safari. In Swahili, safari means a journey. So you start from one point and you travel through that journey through different communities, but different communities also means traveling to meet, for instance, your Department of Energy, what are their problems. So really taking time to make that journey at the start of our program, and to really understand what the challenges are and what the problems are, and bring that, consolidate that, bring that all together, and then use that to inform what our project and our plans are, rather than having, you've submitted your proposal, you have your work plan, you're going to deliver on that. No, take time, sit down, go on your journeys, come discuss, and then plan your actions going forward. And I think it makes for much more successful initiatives.
And I think the challenge there, especially here, is how to make that happen in climate finance. Because you have very bureaucratic structures that that take a long time, and also that work on deliverables and also impact indicators, but not necessarily on building capacities in the organizations, and also allowing organizations to build trust among each other, right? There's some interesting examples also of learning communities that we have worked with in the Amazon, where we bring indigenous peoples from the Brazilian, Peruvian, and Ecuadorian Amazon. There's also the language barriers, so there are a lot of things that you never sit down to think about, but it is possible, even also online with the COVID. And also, we believe that by bringing together different people is where the learning comes from, and also where it is the people that drive the change and drive the innovation from the ground. Thelma, go ahead.
Okay, just to add on to what she said about trusting. So I also feel like a trust in the process needs to be created, because also about COP, there's so many things that I feel people do not understand completely. And it's important for people to understand that before, you can decide, do I support this, do I not? Because we are constantly informed about decisions made. We're going to do this by 2070, we're going to do this by 2040, but that's just a statement. We're not getting the full picture completely, and I feel that we need that full picture. Okay, of course, many of them are released, but we need to see that full picture. Like, it needs to be publicized as well, because many people do not know the process fully, and the process needs to be well understood in order to build that trust. Because another reason that maybe COP has been receiving a lot of criticism, because there's also the good and the bad side, I feel like it's only airing out completely what has been agreed on to build that trust more between the people and the organization as well.
Absolutely agree. And it also has to do, I believe, with how you talk about it. And that's why we wanted to put this section on climate narratives, because it is necessarily, of course, something technical and a process that has to be transparent, etc., but also something that people can relate to and connect to and see how that has an impact in their daily lives, right? And that's why I think having the voices from local organizations and local leaders is key in these spaces. Thelma, from your experience on the ground, is it your first COP?
Não.
Quarta
COP.
Okay, so como ves, how do you see this COP? Do you feel hope in a way? And what would you improve if you could?
Primeiro, quando se junta as partes, que são os países, eles deveriam, primeiro, chamar a sociedade que contribui com o desenvolvimento, que contribui com a segurança do planeta. As decisões, elas são tomadas lá. E elas não deveriam ser tomadas, as decisões, como os presidentes, eles tomam as decisões. Eles deveriam começar por aqui, chamando jovens, chamando os povos indígenas, chamando uma sociedade que contribui, que assegura a vida de todo um povo. Se eles partissem desse princípio, com certeza seria uma outra COP. Essa COP, eu já acompanho há 4 COPs, né? E eu só vejo isso. A gente chega aqui, a gente vai reclamar, a gente quer de uma forma, mas eles impõem de uma outra forma, porque é eles que têm a caneta e assinam, e eles não vêm perguntar a nós como que nós queremos. Como que nós vamos assegurar dentro da Amazônia um ar puro que chega até aqui, se as partes elas estão pagando para a destruição?
Another question related to that. You mentioned Joenia Wapichana, no? Is it also a strategy to occupy political power and hold those spaces?
É começar a sensibilizar o jovem, a criança, para que ele tenha um entendimento político. Porque é através do Congresso que há decisões. É dali que sai, nós chamamos PLs, as PECs, né? Dali que saem as decisões para que são tomadas para a vida, para as nossas vidas. E essas leis, elas vêm contra a vida humana, porque se vai para uma COP, as partes se juntam para pagar o crédito de carbono. Ele está incentivando a destruição. Deveria as partes tomar uma outra proposta. Tomando uma outra proposta, nós deveríamos estar dentro dessas partes para nós encaminharmos. Como que nós queremos assegurar um planeta saudável? Veja que quando há uma grande enchente, o que acumula? É a garrafa PET, é a garrafa de vidro, né? Não se conseguiu ainda fazer algo que não enchesse, não poluísse o planeta. Como que nós vamos fazer com que as mudanças climáticas elas se amenizem, se cada vez se polui? São situações que nós deveríamos ser consultados primeiro. Aí sim, nós poderíamos ter ou dar um encaminhamento melhor para as nossas próximas gerações.
Obrigada, Thelma. You mentioned laws that go against the indigenous peoples right now in Brazil and also in other countries. Sometimes also we can use legal strategies to enforce and promote changes and guarantee the exercise of human rights. And this morning I was in a panel where they said that I think it was like 20% of the legal actions that have been presented so far are by children and youth. And I was wondering if Chandel, Nadia, or Ian, have you participated in any of those initiatives? Do you know any of them? Because in my view, that's for right now perhaps the most powerful strategy to raise ambition and also hold jury bearers accountable. Are you thinking of that within your organizations or also in the communities?
I will jump in on that. Yes, but I don't think I'm legally allowed to answer this question. But yeah,
Okay.
I have a court case pending, open information, so I'll say that.
Nadia?
Yeah, so in Push Sweden, we're actually part of it's called Aurora-målet. So it's like also like a litigation against the Swedish state, but it's more led by also other youth organizations. So we're supporting that, and but I mean then definitely like there's so many youth litigations. I think in Portuguese youth are suing the EU states, and I mean that's definitely something where but we also feel like we don't have the legal expertise in that, but kind of when working together with other organizations who have that, I mean definitely like an important strategy to do that, and I think also as we talked before about kind of trust and the processes, kind of maybe also a way to really question. Yeah, kind of the legal structures and like how processes are set up. And for example, in Germany, there was like a landmark case of showing that the current policies are actually threatening the future of, like really threatening the freedom of children and young people. And I think that can actually also maybe bring a narrative change of, well, because there's often this narrative of we need to reduce our freedom because of climate action, but well, it is not having climate action is reducing our freedoms. And, yeah.
Ian, in your communities, do you know of any cases, legal actions to increase ambition against government or against the private sector? No?
Oh, okay. So with Decarbonized, our school has taken more initiative to try and raise this awareness. So we've taken initiatives such as tree planting, such as going on protests, and I feel like it's raised the awareness that our government has, because not only our school, other schools have taken much more of an interest, and I feel like this has captured the attention of people who make these decisions, because we're starting to see more of that interest in climate change. Like, for example, I was actually interviewed by a national radio station, and I was actually like impressed, like, wow, they replied back to an issue regarding climate and publicizing it. So yeah, I'm not sure about any specific legal action that has taken place, but I'm seeing more of a change towards the interest of climate action.
And I was thinking that would be a good strategy for air pollution as well. No?
That's true, yes. And so I think one of the challenges we have is that there are no legal instruments that you can hold people accountable for. So particularly, for instance, when it comes to energy access, like you said, in the air pollution, I think that indeed there should have been, I think a lot of women who have whose rights have been, communities and women whose rights have been infringed because of not having energy access. One of the challenges is that energy is not actually recognized as a human right. So it's different from water and it's different from housing, for instance, and health. But we are certainly advocating for the fact that it is a public good. You cannot cook your food if you don't have, you don't have energy. You can't even purify your water. So it should be a right. But at least raising awareness of that and trying to put in place instruments that can hold accountable. So the economic community of West Africa, ECOWAS, has put in place actually the first regional legislation on energy access, and we have yet to see what's going to happen. But even beyond that, taking legal action is very expensive in developing countries. Lawyers are very expensive, and the processes also take a lot of time. And so providing that support to be able to bring a case to court and to see the duration of those cases, because some of these cases take 5 years and more, is equally as important.
Yes, that's a challenge we are facing when we think about it, because of course we act through programs or projects, like also Temi said, and then that's over and the case continues. So it's impossible in a way. We're reaching the end of the event, and I wanted to give you also the chance to do a call for action. A call to action to everyone here and also to everyone seeing us online. You want to start?
Okay, so a call to action. If anything, I want governments to provide more institutions for people to raise their voices, a platform for them to raise their voices, because that's what we need. There's so many different interests from so many different groups of people, and I feel that governments really need to accept that idea and move on with it. If anything else, when governments are addressing youth, it'd be fun. Like, yeah, we need to develop that interest. It has to be more than coming with a ready-made speech about this and that, but building a passion and not just, because this is our future. This is not just another passing issue. Yeah.
And beyond governments, because sometimes I feel that we give all the power and the responsibility to governments, but there's also a lot to do from the civil society and other stakeholders.
Okay, so I'm a youth, but I want to ask the older generations, please vote for the correct people, because that has a lot of, it has a huge impact, and it's those leaders who are making our decisions, so we need to elect the right people. Okay, you need to elect the right people. So, yeah.
Thelma?
Reflorestamente para a cura da terra. É o nosso papel. Nós, mulheres indígenas, precisamos, de fato, assegurar a vida da minha próxima geração. Porque os meus avós, as mulheres que me antecederam, elas conseguiram assegurar hoje a minha voz. E eu tenho um papel fundamental dentro da terra-mãe para assegurar a vida das próximas gerações. As demarcações nas nossas terras, elas precisam acontecer pelo governo brasileiro. Porque se não houver demarcação das nossas terras indígenas no Brasil, nós não iremos conseguir assegurar a vida das próximas gerações.
Sheila.
Obrigada.
So a call to action to end energy poverty and to ensure gender transformative, socially inclusive and just energy transition. And to do this by joining a gender and energy compact that Energy is leading together with other actors. And information on the compact can be found on the Energia website, www.energia.org. So welcoming governments, civil society, private actors, individuals, just all of us here to join the compact and to join us in this journey. Thank you.
Yeah, I think my call to action would be to ourselves, like our organization, but also to other Global North organizations, is really to, I think we really need to take the time to question our own structures and how we are set up and our own privileges. Being white, being from Europe, and understanding the diversity of the struggles and the diversity of the challenges. I mean, as we've heard here on the panel, it is the impact of the climate crisis are just seeping into so many intersectional challenges, and I think really connecting to and building these trust-based connections with other organizations, especially from the Global South, to work together and build new projects and new partnerships ahead.
All right, call to action. Remember to be a good human being. Like, I think somewhere along the line people forget that. So remember to be a good human being. It's not that hard, but somehow, somewhere along the ways, people find ways to divide and make things more complicated than it needs to be. But just, you know, you don't know what somebody's going through. You don't know what life is going to be. So if you try to be a decent human being, I think you'll be all right. And climate crisis is the same thing. Don't take more than you need. Help people in need. And try. I mean, yeah, it's a big crisis, but if we do nothing, nothing's going to happen. So I dare you to try, I guess. Please. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thelma, you wanted to sing and have some music?
Antes de nós sairmos daqui, eu quero fazer um canto. Esse canto, ele nos diz que nós estamos em uma grande festa. Mas será que nós estamos, nesse momento, na COP, em uma grande festa? Que festa é essa? Os meus ancestrais, eles se fazem presente. Esses ancestrais que precisam reflorestar a mente de cada um de vocês. Porque eu vou chamar todos para vir, para se pintar do barro. O que o barro representa para nós? O barro é a nossa terra. É a nossa terra, mãe, que precisa ser cuidada. E ela precisa ser cuidada por cada um de nós. Segure um na mão do outro, por favor. Segure na mão do seu companheiro do lado. Levantem-se, por favor. Por favor. Nós precisamos acreditar um ao outro. Se nós não cuidarmos do nosso próximo, nós não iremos conseguir assegurar a vida das próximas gerações. Nós não podemos ter medo um do outro, porque senão a gente vai sucumbir junto com a nossa terra-mãe. Xiu taum, parigua moré, xiu taum, parigua moré, xiu taum, parigua moré, xiu taum, parigua moré, wanabom, parigua moré, wanabom, parigua moré, xiu taum, parigua moré, xiu taum, parigua moré. Obrigada.
Obrigada, Thelma. And with that, I think we close. On behalf of Hivos, CEPLAES, TakingITGlobal, and Push, we want to thank you all for joining us and sharing this diverse space for different voices to join climate action. So thank you.